Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast, the official podcast of Pineland, broadcasting to you from an undisclosed location deep inside Pineland, where we discuss faith, family, finances, firearms, freedom, food, and everything else in between, with those who believe in living free and living out the values that made this country free. Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast. This is Paul LaFavor, and you're listening to the podcast for America's Warriors. I'm here with my Ranger buddy, Mike Blackburn. And today is Friday, or Saturday, 14th September 2024.
There you go.
Yeah, get it right. Get my days right. In this episode, we're talking with Scott Kinder. He's the founder of De Oppresso Liber Coach. He is also the author of several books. We got a hold of Scott because Scott believes actually in some of the same things we do about freedom, firearms, all these other F's we just compiled. But
finance.
Yeah, but he's also a fellow 18 series guy. So fellow Green Beret, Scott Kinder, 5th Group. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, guys, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yes. There's so many things that we've covered on our podcast for, the last 2 years, Mike?
Yeah, about that.
Something like that. And then we've covered pretty much all those topics that we hit in the intro. And I think Scott has, you can probably talk about all of those. Just by,
a little bit.
Your book, Frag Out. He also has Scott's Field Manual, Achieving Your Vision. I love the title, FM 18-1, Green Beret's Quick Guide to Goals and Visions. And then FM 18-2, I'm sure this is going to be a lot of, in the series, right? I see where you're going with this. But FM 18-2, a Green Beret's Guide to Getting Out of Debt and Living the Life You Deserve. I mean, these are good places to go.
Well, especially today. I mean, I think the biggest anxiety most people have today is just the economy. And
yes.
It's easy because in everyone's family, including my own, it wasn't that long ago when we were all sitting kind of pretty. I was making plenty of money. I mean, things were affordable. We could go on vacations. And it seems like everything's getting kind of tightened up now. And now, you're running out of money. You got plenty of month left and not enough money. And so people are trying to figure out, I got myself into this pickle here because we went through so many years of kind of comfortable, good times, and now everything's getting kind of tight, and everyone's starting to have to get serious. And so one of the reasons why we reached out to you, Scott, was because you seem to have a pretty good approach on how to tackle some of these problems that we find ourselves in today.
Yeah, no doubt. How would an 18 series guy, how does a Green Beret tackle the problems that we have today? Yeah. I mean, that's what you offer in your books.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, especially what I think every young man today should probably get their hands on. I mean, there's a lot of guys just sitting out of the workforce. They don't really have a purpose. And so I can see how your book would provide like a mindset, a purpose, how to actually look at life, and then not only that, but then not just to be somebody that just kind of shows up, but somebody just gets after it. So yes. That's the idea. Not just, I mean, that's the old American idea, right? Not just show up, but just get after it. Really make it happen.
If you read the Gallup State of the American Workplace Report, it has some pretty fascinating stats in there. And one of them that I always quote is that 85% of the U.S. workforce is actively disengaged at work, with 45% of them actively seeking other jobs while they're at work getting a paycheck. And, my epiphany after I read that was,
wow,
no SF group has that level of disengagement. Sure, there might be a couple people in the wrong roles and whatever that aren't as fully engaged, but, you definitely won't have that disengagement on an ODA. So how do you take that ODA type mindset, the 18 mindset, and employ it into organizations?
Wow, I'm going to have to chew on that for a little while. That is fantastic.
I was just thinking about that because you're absolutely right. When I, back in the day, you're sitting around the team room. If anyone's contemplating anything, it's probably the next adventure.
Yeah.
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 forward thinking. And not to get too far ahead of the conversation, but I mentioned in Frag Out, and one of the epiphanies that I had after putting over several hundred people out into debt coaching and getting them out of debt was, you guys want to know the number one reason that people can't get out of debt? And I figured out is because they can't forgive themselves for their past mistakes. They go, oh, I can't believe I'm unemployed and I bought $100,000, Dodge Dually with, this or a Corvette, or I racked up $50,000 in credit card bills, et cetera, and they can't forgive themselves. And I don't possess that level. I mean, certainly I look back and do AARs and do everything else, but I don't possess that level of like dwelling in past failures, right? And nor does any other Green Beret that I know. We acknowledge the failure, we get up, dust ourselves off, and move out, draw fire.
No, that's that. I was curious about how these books came along, but then, of course, it's obvious that the situation created that. I mean, you have, as they say, there's no virtue like necessity, or as William Shakespeare once said it. But that's true. I mean, you had this need, you had this void. I mean, that's the reason why. I mean, we exist. The Blacksmith Publishing came along, is there was a void to fill, and then you have these. All the awesomeness that we have in the regiment and how it can be used. So that's, I wonder, maybe we could start talking off like this, like what started you down this path to helping people writing books?
Oh man, that's a little bit complicated, and apologies for a long answer to a short question, but so when I left the GS world, and I mentioned before, my wife's Australian, so I moved back to Australia, and I was working as a chief operating officer for the Institute of Project Management. And my task, as I progressed to that role, was to bring their offerings to the U.S. marketplace. So this is 2015-ish, and as I'm bringing all these offerings and talking to military units across, obviously, we landed some deals with some soft organizations and some SF groups, and we landed a lot of deals with conventional units as well. And as I went to the GS world, I was almost embarrassed about my time in SF, right? Not literally embarrassed, but I didn't know how to talk to it. And as I left the GS world and started in Sydney, I was a horrific consultant at first, and bringing all those things together and seeing the problems that military had, I started defaulting into transition help as well as kind of a free offering. Well, we do project management. Any Green Beret that I know worth their salt is great at managing projects. You have to understand civilian project management. And when you look at an average project manager in the US, I'm on a partnership with the Honor Foundation, and we do a project management roundtable hosted by KPMG. They announced that the average salary for a mid-level project manager is $150K a year. So why aren't more Green Berets going into an environment to where they have passion and purpose, and they can lead and show those unconventional leadership skills? Because the example that I always gave them was, you guys ever write a comprehensive email or a report for school or something that you're working on, and somebody walks in and 3 seconds later goes, hey, there's a typo right there, and we go, oh, I didn't even see that. I've been staring at this thing for an hour and didn't even see that. So we go into organizations and through our unconventionality, look at the problems that they have and very quickly go and fix it, because we're trained to look at unconventional approaches to problem solving. And so I started highlighting that across, and then helping more Green Berets get placed into roles through certification and through just job awareness. And it became my passion in life, because, I'll tell you guys, and I feel safe saying this on the podcast, if a Green Beret is grumpy, everybody in the world knows a Green Beret is grumpy. We are not great at hiding our boredom or our grumpy feelings from somebody else, right? If I'm not happy, I'm going to let everybody know how unhappy I am. And with 22 a day and all these other stats on top of that, we don't have to be grumpy in the backside. Sure, leaving group is horrifically painful because you leave the brotherhood and you leave everything else, but you can create your own happiness outside of that. And when I started saying to Green Berets, be happy, they looked at me like I had a appendage growing on my forehead. And I went, what's wrong with being happy in life, guys? You don't have to be miserable. You deserve to make a hell of a salary and be happy while solving problems and utilizing the skills. Don't reinvent yourself when you transition. Just better yourself and put yourself in the roles you deserve.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, that is all that all of us would think like that, would have How many guys actually get out, 18 series guys, whatever, they get out and they just kind of mope for a while. I mean, they just sit on the couch. They say their life's over. Maybe if that's you right now, if you're on the couch, you listen to this, get up, man. Read this book. Get yourself,
get off your ass.
Get back in the race here. But yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I think something that we forget, and maybe this is me too, because I still work I work at a Robin Sage. So something that, we forget is not everybody thinks like this. Not everybody thinks unconventionally, and then you mentioned some of those buzzwords. I mean, the way we think is we often can invert some of the things that how the world looks at stuff. And so you look at problems differently. Right.
Yeah, you do project. You project you think everyone thinks like you do.
Yeah.
And you realize you
Einstein,
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, Einstein said it, right? You can't solve problems using the same thinking that you used when you created them. Mm-hmm. And so when I go to corporations now, I go, no offense to the MBAs of the world, but you keep hiring all these elite school MBAs and paying them all these great salaries and perks and everything else, but they don't have the ability or the desire to actually change the problems that you have. You hire a Green Beret and we're going to come in there and we're going to fix things. It's not only just to make ourselves happier, but to be invested into re-earning that salary that you're giving us.
Yeah. Now, I've often said, I don't know if I ripped it off somewhere or read it somewhere, but a problem well-defined is half solved. And that's kind of what
nice.
you got going on is you're like, hey, look, what a great guide for young people today, for somebody that's just kind of like fizzled out and say, hey, what do I do with my life? So that's what I love about Frag Out. And then I think you have a lot to offer out there, Scott. As far as like casting a vision, seeing a vision, just that idea alone, seeing a vision, like having a plan for your life, how many people today, you mentioned some stats, but they don't really have they don't have a drive, a purpose,
they're apathetic,
a personal mission,
Yeah.
So I wonder,
life's going to happen to them.
Yeah. Life just kind of happens to them. Wow. No.
Well, here's the other thing. You were talking about, Green Berets or whatever. I think generally veterans that are retiring or separating from the military. I know myself. After 20 years of military, I retired, and I realized I really didn't own anything. I didn't have any money. There was no money saved up. I mean, I was, scraping by on my little salary, that I was making there from Uncle Sugar. Just enough to kind of live decent. I wasn't living bad, but I certainly wasn't, doing well. I had plenty of debt, car payments, house payments, all kinds of obligations. What do you recommend to people? I've spent, countless hours listening to people like Dave Ramsey and what have you, but it really wasn't my idea of getting out of debt and getting ahead. And there's nothing wrong with budgeting and all that, but what do you tell that guy that kind of finds himself in that situation where he's kind of just loaded down with a lot of debt and he's trying to change his trajectory in life?
Well, I tell him he's got to refine his emotions. And so the three principles of 18-2, the guide to getting out of debt, I took all the, Suze Orman and Dave Ramsey and every other financial coach I'd ever listened to and gone through their courses and more. And I said, these 7 steps are way too complicated. So how do I make it 3 simple steps? Like Thomas Jefferson and Steve Jobs and everybody else have always gone by the rule of 3. So very simplistically, I said, first step, you got to get mad. You got to get mad at where you are in life and go, I should be doing better. Not to punch you in the face, Mike, I apologize, but I spent 20 years serving my country. I shouldn't have to. I should be in my twilight years now, enjoying life and not having to go find another job to pay bills or worry about paying my credit card off or anything else, right? So get mad. Step 2, get organized, find out what you owe and all that. I can't tell you how many Green Berets call me because their wives typically force them to and say, hey, man, I want to talk to you about getting out of debt. And I go, cool, brother. How much debt do you have? And they go, well, I might have about 10K in credit cards and, oh, yeah, about a 20K in truck debt. And, oh, yeah, I owe the IRS 5K and I owe this. And I go, stop right there, man. here's the book, here's a free copy. I can't help you because you have no emotions in this at all. And all that's going to happen is I'm going to end up grabbing you by the scruff of the neck and trying to pull you, and it's not going to work out well for either of us. Conversely, when somebody gets mad, they call me and say, I've got $175,648.17 in debt. I think if I sacrifice half of my paycheck for the next 2 years, I can be 100% debt free. And I go, all right, brother, let's go. We're in this. Like, we're going to do this together and get you out of it. So you got to get mad and then get organized. You got to know where your money's going. And typically that means budgeting, but you also have to find out, like, all these commercials tell us what people are spending bullshit, sorry for the language, crap subscriptions on and more. But you got to get organized. You got to find out where your money's going, what cuts you can make or you're willing to make. And then you got to get in the fight. You got to dig the foxhole and, put out your aiming sticks and do all the things that you should be doing to actually start winning that battle, because it is, in fact, a battle.
Love it. Yeah, you got to, if you can apply energy to a job, anything that you're doing, that's, I think that's rare. Just on that, not to get too philosophical, but just that idea right there, just having energy, having a drive. Those are the things that we're known for, 18 years guys. So I think, if you look,
it was really embarrassing. Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize. But when I was bringing the project management courses to the U.S. and teaching project management, people would always pull me aside, and it still happens. They go, "Man, you're so passionate about this." And for probably 7 or 8 years, I highly resisted that. I'm like, dude, I'm a Green Beret. I'm not passionate. Like, passionate is, the kid running around the outfield, like chasing butterflies and stuff, right? Or I'm not emotional. But then I realized it was actually a massive compliment that I showed the energy. I wasn't some boring professorial type behind the lectern going, this is your stakeholder register and more, right? Like, I'm telling them how it will better their lives. And so you're right. If you have passion in something, I tell every Green Beret I talk to transitioning, look, find something that gives you passion and purpose. Even if it doesn't pay you what you want, but if you have passion and purpose, the paycheck will come. That's the 3 Ps.
Yeah, no doubt. That's old school too. Do a good job, get paid.
Exactly.
Win accolades along the way. But one thing that really impressed me about in time that I see, guys like you that give back, is how you started. And your books are in that same vein, and that is you want to help people. You're a guy. You're gonna probably keep. You're probably not gonna make like us. You're not gonna make millions from book sales.
Yeah. No.
We'll just let the cat out of the bag here. But you care. You want people, especially people like veterans. And so I think your books are geared towards the veterans. When you're writing this, like you're achieving your vision. These are probably weird questions that I didn't have a list of these to give to you. So this is totally off the cuff, but achieving your vision, where did you go first as far as like, okay, I'm going to write this. I'm going to write FM 18-1. What was like the foundational starting point for you when you started this?
Being a massive project management nerd, and talking to, having the help of all the people that I talk to, right? Because so a simple piece, when I ask somebody if they're transitioning, like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do when you retire from the military? And they couldn't even answer those 2 questions. Dang. And so I'm like, what do you mean? Where am I going to go? I'm like, were you staying at Liberty, or are you going to, Omaha, Nebraska, like for family? Like, where are you going to transition to? And what do you want to do? Do you want a career 2.0? Or do you want a part-time job you can fish every day, right? Like that's going to help how you decide this whole thing. But even worse was talking to corporations. They would hire me to come in and consult and coach with them. And I would go, all right, where are you guys going? And they didn't know where they were going. And so wow. I looked back on my time. I was like, all right, so how all these project management things about like, tactical, operational, strategic, and all that stuff. I came up with a awkward paragraph that says what we do technically leads to how operationally we achieve our why strategically. And so the what, how, why paragraph became the bones for FM 18-1. And, I give it out when I go to corporations and teach their project management. It's not a comprehensive volume. It's just a semi-quick read. It's a guide. And so they come back to me after a couple of days and go, I didn't even think about half the stuff in here. Like, how do I know that I have the team to do this? How do I know that there are barriers? And so sometimes something as simple as setting your vision is, do I have the components in place to make this a reality? Am I broke in trying to pay my credit card bill every month on my car payment while I'm trying to launch a new global brand and a website with consulting services and more? If you can't travel for work because you're paying all your bills, you're not going to achieve those things. So FM18-1 became the guide of, and I always talk about like slalom skiers, right? Like if you look at them as they get out of the gate, is they race down the hill. They don't just hope for the best. They have a plan. They know that first gate may be a hard kickoff to the left. So as soon as that gate opens in front of them, what do? They kick off hard to the left and they hit the gate. And then they know how to get to the second gate. And so, we call it phase lines and all that stuff. In the civilian project management world, we call it milestones. But, how do you achieve those milestones and celebrate the successes as you get there? Because what we're seeing with millennials in the workplace is, and it's no offense to millennials, I love them in the workplace, but they don't like comprehensive plans. They want to know, what's step one? All right, we got step one, what's step two? And so some of the things I have to tell Green Berets is we're pretty adept at saying, hey, we're going to overthrow Afghanistan in 6 weeks. And that doesn't work well in the current job community because they're like, what's step one in this whole plan? Like, I get your vision, but where do we need to go first? And so it's how do you work with your teams and communicate to your teams effectively?
Yeah, I hear a lot of, awesome things in there about like MDMP, statement of stating a problem, structuring the problem, and
understanding commander's intent.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, when you said there was a lot of people that are getting out and haven't even thought about, their life after the military, at the end of the military. I mean, they're at the end, they're processing out, and they have no clue what they're going to do, which always that is striking to me. I mean,
I know a lot of them,
it's scary.
And I do. It is scary, and it's.
I was one of them.
You really.
I was that guy.
Well, I mean, I think, I'd be honest with you, I think the Armed Forces has done a better job recently with giving guys kind of more time to transition and sort of
so-called mandates 2 years out.
Yeah,
and
kind of sort of force them into this thinking about the fact that you're getting out in a couple of years. Have a plan, think about something. But I also think there's a power there. You're absolutely correct. You must have a vision of kind of where you're going. It drives everything else, and it doesn't mean that the vision can't be changed. You could be trucking.
Words out of my mouth.
You could be trucking along and go, whoa, that looks pretty cool over there. I hadn't even thought about that, and make the transition. But you always have to have that vision, don't you, Scott?
Yes. And that's what, again, when I go to corporations and talk to them, they're amazed at how flexible I am at just adapting and moving out somewhere else. And they'll go, but I thought that, and I'm like, you have to be adaptable in life. Like there is no perfectly straight line that says I'm going to watch this, land navigation, right? Talk about Robin Sage and stuff. You're never going to just flawlessly hit your attack point, and you got to always be able to adjust and look for new things and major train features and more, right? So we get taught this by very nature. Now just translate that to planning and corporate issues as well. And I know a ton of Green Berets who are doing a great job of really helping revolutionize organizations through dirt simple things like creation of an SOP folder. It could be digital and it doesn't have to be an actual binder like we had back in fifth group and stuff, right? But creating SOPs, creating the plans and the methodologies and stuff, and just putting that old school stuff in there. In fact, I always tell Green Berets when I talk to them, and Paul, since you work at Robin Sage, you'll laugh at this. I said, hey, look, you want to know the key to being successful in your retirement, your transition, in my opinion, is going back to a Robin Sage mentality. Because nobody goes to Robin Sage unless you're just a complete narcissist with the expectations of, oh, this is going to be simple, I'm going to own it. No, the infill is going to suck. You're going to get blown out of the G base. You're going to, be hungry and tired and have to work with a team of people and G chief that doesn't like you and is a highly experienced guy and all this stuff, all the while being watched by a very experienced cadre. So we go to Robin Sage with a beginner's mindset. And then the problem is we get rank. We get commands underneath us. We get to be a sergeant major or a battalion commander or something. And we forget that Robin Sage mindset, which we were very willingly able to fill. And we knew that we just have to fail forward, get up, dust ourselves off, and prove that we were capable of earning the Green Beret. And so when people forget that Robin Sage mindset, I tell them all the other stuff, the level 3 stuff, the 3X stuff, all the extra, that's all icing on the cake that just makes you bigger and better and more attractive to business if you can couch it right. But Robin Sage is what gets you in the door.
Yeah, it's the foundation. It really is.
Yeah. Hey, so with that, not at the risk of just divulging all of the awesomeness that's in your achieving your Vision FM 18-1, but could you just? I'm just been curious about operational waypoints. Maybe you can maybe take that concept and just tease it out just a little bit.
Sure. So back to the slalom type scenario, right? So just give me 1 second. I'm pulling up something so I can actually talk to it better.
And you're doing this off the cuff, man. So this is true SF style.
Yeah,
I didn't give you like, hey, here's 10 questions.
But listen, we call it. Hey, this is Pineland, man. I mean, this is the way we roll here.
And then, bam, here you go.
Yeah, no, exactly. They're passing around the moonshine, and I've been put on the spot.
Yeah.
So the first thing I talk to in FM 18-1 is submitting your vision, right? And again, 3 steps. By this date, I or we will do this, resulting in this, right? Because if you look at all the authors who actually do sell millions of dollars in books, like Donna Miller and Dave Ramsey and more, right? They're John Cotter. They're all great at talking to the results if we succeed and the consequences if we fail. So I tell people, put a date. You can always adjust the date. If you say by June 1st next year we're going to do this, and it's July 1st, you're not a failure. You just adapted the plan. And then the first thing I do is say, find your operational waypoints that are going to make you achieve that. So the operational waypoints in a series of A1 through 3 and B1 through 3 are the very first things you have to do. And in Frag Out, I call it witness, right? Like, what's the next step to get me to there? So after talking to those waypoints, then you get your guiding coalition of stakeholders. So this is all change management 101. So who do I need to get on my team with this to buy into this vision with me so that we can empower the organization? And then after you get your guiding coalition of stakeholders, you then go to the very tactical next steps. What's the very first thing that I have to do to achieve that operational waypoint tactically? And then you list those all out. And then lastly, different than most approaches, I make you list down the barriers that are going to be in the way of your success. So if debt is your barrier, if your team capabilities is your barrier, if you don't know, you're trying to build a website and you don't know how to code and you're reliant on somebody else, like, what are the barriers to your success? And when you put those, I can email you guys the document that I use as a PDF. When you put those all together, it gives you that map, right? And there's a few short pages that you can then stick to and realize. Because most people, I was running a project management certification class it was a low-level certification, but for high schoolers. And I said to them, I was in there as a guest, like lecturer, talking to them and just making sure everything's going all right. And I said, well, the saying, guys, like, how do you eat an elephant? And I got 50 blank stares back to me in return. And one kid, and I talk about it in Frag Out, looked at me on Zoom and goes, Mr. Scott, is the elephant alive? And I said, no. If you ask a Green Beret, though, how do you eat an elephant? You're going to get on an ODA 12 different viewpoints, right? Well, I'm starting at the foot, I'm starting at the tail, I'm starting at the trunk, I'm going to start the belly, right? But we're going to have our Leatherman and our spoons out, and we're going to be eating. We're going to be chewing while we talk, right? So when we start talking to actually stepping forward, if you don't know where you're stepping forward to, too many people make the first misstep. And Paul, I know you see this at Robin Sage, not at McCall all the time, right? You just probably sit there and chuckle and go, not the first step I would have taken, man, but all right, that's an option, not the preferred color, but there you go.
Yeah. No, I think what I hear in that too, it's a lot of creative thinking, right?
Yes.
Taking, obviously, just to state the obvious, complicate the obvious here, you're taking, the actual templated way that we plan, how we look at things, and just you've creatively taken that and applying that to all of life. I mean, I think that in itself is, brilliant, and it works. I mean, why wouldn't it work?
It's gotten good success so far. I've got a couple corporations that are using it, and they're emailing me on the routine with how. And it also, what I like about it is it also works for life, right? Yeah. So I admit all the time that I'm a massive nerd, as most SF guys are, and for the last 5 years I read 100 books a year. But having said that, there's I took the best of all these sales and leaderships and team building books, guys like McChrystal and again, Dave Ramsey and Donald Miller and Brian Johnson and more. And I put together, Mike Weinberg wrote a sales book called New Sales Simplified, and he talks all these things about client issues addressed. And I created a model that I've been using for like the last 5 years, and it's called the POD model. And I don't do anything in business without running it through the POD model. And it's simple. It stands for problem offering differentiators. And so when you solve a problem for people and you identify a problem, you capture their attention. Then your offering keeps their attention and your differentiators seal the deal. But most people, I mean, you guys are both on LinkedIn as well, right? Most of us are horrifically bad. I know I was a long time ago. We try to start off sales conversations with our differentiators. Oh, I did 30 years in special forces. I was at CW5. I was this, I was that, right? And you get a lot of thank you for your service and other token, sayings, but you don't get any sales. When you lead with differentiators, you get a cool, that's all about you. But when you put the customer as a hero in your sales efforts and you identify a problem, I tell people all the time, if you're not mechanically inclined and your car is not working, you can't wait to get that to a trusted mechanic and pay them, right? If your septic tank is overfilling in the back, you can't wait to get a plumber out there to like fix that and kill the stench, right? So your wife gets off your back and more. When you solve a problem for people, they can't wait to work with you. And your offerings should be tailor-made to that problem. But again, step two of what people do poorly, especially us in business, is we build an offering and then we try and round peg, round hole that to every situation out there. And there are no round peg, round holes. Like there's diamond holes and square holes and everything else. So you got to custom make your offering to solve that problem for people. And that's exactly how I've been as moderately successful as I am.
Mm. I want you to talk about your DOL coaching experiences, and that just fascinates me when you were mentioning that earlier. Can you give us some like samples of like some of these families that maybe what kind of situation they were in? I mean, obviously you don't have to name any names, but and kind of and kind of the success story at the end of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, so it's really threefold, right? Like the debt piece I'll talk to you first, the certification piece for project management, because DOL Coach is a platinum educational partner of the Institute of Project Management. So I'm able to run certification courses. And then the third piece is the transition piece on it. But starting with the debt piece, I had a very close friend who I went through Q course with. Again, I won't drop any names in case he listens, but his wife finally got him to call me. They had $200,000 in corporate and consumer debt amongst them. And, I had to ask some very hard conversations. He was trying to, he had matriculated out of group and was running his own company and had some tax hurdles and all these other things and more. And he just had like an ostrich, his head in the sand. And so finally, I got them both on calls and I had to go to his wife, you're paying $600 a month in yoga and Pilates. Ooh. And she goes, yeah, but I have to have those or else I'm not happy. And I said, well, the Apple Fitness app on a $100 Apple TV has yoga and Pilates built in. And she goes, oh. And I went, so when you have the ability to look at people and just kill the excuses and tell them, hey, life is hard, you got to make sacrifices. They're now doing much better and they're almost completely out of debt with the whole 200K. And the other piece of it is like, I'm a pretty devout guy of faith. And I'll tell you, when you're deliberate with your money, God smiles on you and does more. I had a military family from Liberty. They called me, they had $50,000 in debt, I think, and he was a captain, and they had a massive, great plan to put together. And they started being highly, highly deliberate and intentional, 2 words that I always use with clients. And the wife calls me up chuckling one day, and she goes, hey, Scott, I have awesome news. Like, God smiled on us, like you said. And I said, what's up? And she goes, I found out that I've been paying a gym membership for our gym at Fort Lewis, and we haven't lived at Fort Lewis for 3 years. Oh, Lord. And every month. And so she called the gym, and the gym said, oh my Lord, we would never do that to our military community. And they refunded her $150 a month for 3 years.
Wow.
All the way back in their bank account. And they paid off one of their credit cards like immediately with it.
Nice.
And so she's like, it's so true. So there's the success stories of just being happiness, and not to mention the intangible, our wives stress way more about money than we typically do. because our stress level as GBs is normally pretty high and we don't have to show it. But if your marriage is on the rocks, and that's what's criminally stupid to me, why do you protect your marriage for 20 years in group, all the deployments through GWAT and everything else, just to get out and go crazy spending money because I did 10 deployments, whatever, I deserve it, and all this entitlement belief. And now you're stressing out your marriage and you're putting your marriage on the rocks. And then what happens? We self-medicate, right? We start drinking more and we work out less, and we are now a fat former Green Beret and not a barrel-chested freedom fighter. And our marriage is now suffering even more because we're hungover and grumpy all the time. So quit with the self-licking ice cream kind of stupidity and just be intentional in your life again and help make your family back to being safe and set your kids up for success.
Love it. Love it.
So the second tier DOL coach, I've certified over 40,000 military in project management in the past 4.5 years. And it's, again, not to overuse the phrase, but it's criminally stupid to me that industry looks at a retiring Green Beret and goes, oh, we can't hire you as a project manager because you don't understand projects. And then you get a certification and letters after your name, and bam, oh my God, we should pay you $150,000 a year because you speak project management fluently. So certification and the lack of it. I have contracts with SWIC. I have contracts with SOCOM. I'm a DOL coach as a SOCOM preferred provider for PM training. So now, in of all the groups, 7th group is taking the lead. They've certified more people than all other groups combined. But I've gone to each of the groups and done training. I've been flown out to Soxent in Qatar to run training for project management. But now, when you have those letters after your name, industry goes, yeah, cool. You speak project management. We want to pay you $100K a year. And so when you're out of debt and you have disability retirement and you have $100,000 a year in salary coming in and you have a purpose in life, now you're back to being happy. And then lastly, that transition piece, right? Like, find the network of people that want to work with you. It boggles my mind how the SFA is kind of dying and the VFW is dying. We moved down to Bradenton, Florida because my son's a pretty elite soccer player and we got an opportunity to come down here and play. But I went to the local VFW. I shunned the VFW for a decade, and I find awesome guys. And I'm sitting there just bowl of popcorn in hand, listening to their war stories, right? And going, you're a Vietnam guy, you're a couple of World War II guys in there. There's all sorts of guys. I'm like, this is amazing. There's a brotherhood right here. And all the Special Forces Association chapters are a brotherhood. But we have this whole mantra of like, oh, I'm too cool. I don't need to join that. I don't need a brotherhood. Yes, you do. You need a set of people that you want to continue to hang out with, because that's what makes your civilian journey so untenable and unlikable, is that you're surrounded by pariahs. And I was an absolute pariah in Australia. They didn't know what the hell I was. I was in Sydney and they're going, so you were like a commando? And I'm like, yeah, kind of, I guess. And they're like, and how do you know business? I'm like, well, I was also a federal employee at GS-13, and I was also, at a very high security level clearance, and I can help you. And they're like, but we don't understand, like, why would the military be able to help me at all? And we don't communicate well, typically, until we learn the importance and necessity of communicating. And I apologize, guys. I'm very good at giving long answers to short questions.
Well, no, I mean, and that's why you're on. That's why you're on, because you're going into depth and you're really fleshing this stuff out, which is necessary. And I agree with you. We're not very good at congregating and sort of feeding off of each other. I love being around. One of the reasons why I think all of us joined SF was because we loved being around exceptional people. I mean, yes. Who wanted to be around a bunch of duds? I mean, I wanted to be around guys better than me. Yeah, I mean,
sorry, this is a horrible analogy, but I teach at the Special Forces Warrant Officer Advanced Course at Liberty, right? So I was there a couple weeks ago teaching them, and a couple of them laughed in the room when I said it. But I said, look, in SF, here's what you got to understand. And I've worked on 6 continents now, right? So I've got a global perspective on this, and it takes me a long time to put this crap analogy together. In SF, we're all sharks. Some of us are great whites, like Matt Williams, right? Medal of Honor winner. He's a great white shark swimming around and doing stuff. There are amazing, big ass, sharp teeth shark out there. Some of us are gummy sharks, and some of us are makos and bull sharks. But in SF, we're all some variety of a shark in a mid-sized sea, right? And the problem is, we look at all the other sharks and go, I didn't get a Medal of Honor. I don't have a yellow jump stain on my jump wings. I don't have that. I don't have a Ranger tab. That guy has a Silver Star. That dude took the long walk. That dude, and we compare ourselves to all these sharks. But when you transition, you're still a shark. I can put you in a 10x times size ocean, and now there's flounders and guppies and grouper and tuna and everything else swimming around, and you're still a shark. So be comfortable in being a shark, but just know that you're a predator no matter what you're doing, and it's going to come across as that. The sheep knows when a wolf walks in the room.
Nice.
No doubt. Well, the sheep knows when the sheepdog's around too. But so listen, now you're still based in Australia, so I'm assuming that you're.
No, I'm in Florida.
Okay, so
Florida.
you okay? So you gave up the land under there, and now you're more accessible, I guess, to the various different groups. But so if you're, I'm imagining that if I was a Green Beret on a team right now, at the 10-year mark, 15-year mark, wherever, I'm thinking I want to link up with a guy like you earlier rather than later. I mean, I don't want to wait till I retire or transition to.
It's too late. Yeah.
To have a conversation with you. I mean, how does,
Yep.
I'm a team guy right now. I'm getting kind of close to I'm over the hump. What's the best way to like get up with you and take advantage of the certifications and the things that you offer?
DOLcoach.com. So Delta Oscar Lima coach.com. And I also put out my personal cell phone on the podcast. I hope nobody spams me, but 615-881-9324. Give me a call day or night. I only put on Do Not Disturb about midnight till 6 every night. So if you call me between midnight and 6, you have to wait till the morning. But yeah, I'm there for you is what I'll say without trying to make it sound too salesman-y. Sorry.
No, because I mean, most of us, I mean, me included, got out and we're kind of like a little bit of a pickle. I mean, I'd rather just, bypass all that, right? And just have a really good plan prior to getting out and kind of have a focus and a direction and a place where I'm going. And
that's kind of an anomaly,
right.
Really.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it looked like somebody. Well, I mean, reading any of your books, I think would get a jump start on that.
Absolutely,
kind of get a clue. Hey, yeah, go ahead.
Most people equate project management training, and I freely say this out loud, right? Most people think project management training is about as enjoyable as being forced to eat a bag of toast without any water nearby, right? It's like that scene from Nacho Libre where they're just like, just crunching down toast the whole time. And it's not. Like, proper project management training is about protecting your resources, the people, the time, the money, and the gear that you have at your disposal, leadership, and communicating the vision and more. So my courses, the most expensive course I have for military is $765 for you to come through a full live course over Zoom or live in person and get certified. And I say that because comparatively, PMP training is on average $2,400 for the same type of course, but it's 3 times longer than mine. And it's 3 times more expensive. So that's the course that SOCOM has, a preferred partner and more. And if you can't put that together, call me. I put people on special offers all the time through this. I'm not saying like call me at the sob story or whatever, right? But if you're truly broken in need of a certification, I will make sure you get the help that you need.
Nice. Hey, so question for you. What advice could you offer guys that are graduating from the Q course today?
Oh man, a really good friend of mine is a 4th Battalion Spit Commander. So I love Dave quite a bit. He's a genuinely good dude. So if I had to talk to somebody graduating the Q course today, I would tell them enjoy every minute of it that you have. But always it's going to end. Like, the hardest lesson that I think all of us had to realize. The ODA, the group, the Army is all going to keep rolling on without you. As soon as you leave, they're going to keep rolling on. There's still going to be missions to enact. There's still going to be deployments to have. They're going to keep rolling on. So we tend to think of ourselves as completely paramount to that unit's or that team's success. And you might be, and I'm not saying you're not, but enjoy all of it, but always plan for the future. Look forward, not backwards.
Yeah, I mean, life makes sense looking back, but you got to live it forward. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's funny because one of the last things I tell guys that as they're completing Robin's Age is I say, don't forget that you're replaceable. And so it's a great honor.
By design, you're replaceable.
Yeah. We, at
There's
some point,
redundancy built into every ODA.
yeah,
Yeah, it's an honor to serve, but they can find another guy. They can give the honor to someone else. I
that's
mean,
it.
enjoy. You've worked hard, you've earned to be there, but you're not done. You need to keep being hungry and just enjoy it and give everything you can and get anything you can out of it, because you'll never ever be around that group of exceptional people probably again in your life. I mean, it's a really neat opportunity.
The other thing that I'll tell them upon reflection is quit eating our own. As a regiment, we are horrible at eating our own. I have so many examples to go into groups and teaching and talking to them and just hearing examples and go, why did you blacklist that former Bravo that started a range down the road here? Oh, because he served here and he eats, yes, he didn't retire. I'm like, why are we eating our own all the time? So let's quit eating our own. And we mock the SEALs for the Long Live the Brotherhood and all that stuff, right? But they absolutely don't eat their own, and they're better as a result of it. So as a regiment, as you get out, I mean, clearly there are guys that brothers that you're gonna love serving with and love being with, and they'll be brothers for the rest of your life. And also there'll be people that you never want to see again. But quit eating your own. Like, celebrate the success of all of us. Like, we bring so much to America, and here's the waving the flag moment. America needs us right now. So we need to come back together as a regiment and help solve the problems, because you can either be part of the problem or part of the solution.
No doubt. How do we? Since you went there, let's go there. How do we? Because
Pandora's box.
Listen. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, warriors really are going to have to step up in today's society, and if this country is to survive and thrive. And what do you recommend for guys like us that want to help out? And is it focusing on the youth? Is it trying to get involved with the young man? I mean, what is it? Is it going to SFA chapters and congregating? And I mean, what do we have to do?
I think it's multifaceted. So step one, always, I'm a dad of 3. So focusing on the youth, I think parenting as a society, I look back to, I have very difficult conversations like my dad and your dads would have had with you when you were younger, right? And I had those conversations with my sons. And, so I have a 21-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 6-year-old daughter. Same wife, just we still like each other. So for people to do the math there, we weren't planning on a 6-year-old. But I talk to them all the time. Like, my 17-year-old came back from a school day at a very elite soccer academy and said, well, Dad, you can't say that word. I went, what word? And so freedom of speech is just being eroded everywhere. And so I told them, you can say any word you want to, but you just have to realize that there are, in fact, consequences to the words that you say, right? So going back to protecting our youth and giving them the hard conversations and making sure that they're prepared to set up all the things that we have completely effed up as we've gotten older. They're going to have trillions of dollars of debt that they're running into. They're going to have a world in crisis with, some very key players around the globe that really, truly hate us and are intent on our destruction. So starting with the youth is always number one, but being a positive voice in the community, and I hope this doesn't upset anybody when I say this, right? But adopt some different perspectives sometimes and realize the last perfect person walked the earth 2,000 years ago. So just because that person has a different viewpoint, and the greatest example I have is I got invited a few years ago to go sit down with Bob and Sherry, the radio show hosts out of North Carolina. And Bob's a pretty conservative guy. Sherry is a super liberal woman, and they're both friends of mine to this day. But Sherry and I sat down after the show, and if you were to think that there were two people that would not get along at all, that she'd be calling me a fascist and I'd be calling her a snowflake and all this other stuff. And we sat down for 3 hours and had an adult, educated conversation. I conceded some points that she had were solid. She conceded some points that I had were solid. I didn't resort to name calling. She didn't resort to name calling. And so I think there's this, if we can do our part to remove hatred in society, you shouldn't hate somebody because they have a different opinion from you. You can dislike the opinion, but we need to educate more. And one of the things I write about in Frag Out is in the SF Creed, it says we're teachers. And the best Green Berets I know adopt that mindset. And so, again, very long answer to a short question. I'll be open for some feedback. Be a force multiplier. If that's going to SFA and helping that SFA in the chapter reach more kids and do more good in the community, awesome. You're being a force multiplier. You're helping spread that word, and you're being that professional that you should be, the quiet professional that you should be. So, and having said that, don't be a mute professional. It's not classified you served in special forces. You be a quiet professional. So when you understand how to be a force multiplier and you find those areas that you can, which are going to be unique for each of us, do the best that you can for your community. I love coaching soccer. When I coach my kids' soccer teams, I get to talk to youth, and I get to talk to them and be a positive voice for the SF regiment. And parents that come up to me and go like, "You don't look like a former Green Beret." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, we don't all wear jade necklaces and headbands and oil ourselves up every day, right?" So like Rambo is a stereotype. So we can be a positive voice. And I keep finding that we're positive. Just be positive, and that's how change happens. Is stay the course, keep the faith. And my favorite saying that I end Frag Out with is, "Stay the course, keep the faith, and don't be a jackass."
Nice.
You mentioned the high school program, so that kind of interests me because I think that's really, in my opinion, that sort of age group that's really in need
Yes.
is the high school. How do we get in there, and do you have any ideas like how do we get into the local high schools, and how do we offer some programs and talk about some of the things that really you don't hear from educators today? I Paul and I have talked about this many times. I mean, they never teach you how to manage money, for instance, in high school. I mean, they don't teach you how to have a successful marriage in high school. They don't teach you how to find a suitable mate in high school. There's certain life type skills, like fundamental foundational things that are not discussed in high school. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of parent organizations and more. So, talk to parent organizations, find out what they're missing. I think a lot of us want to go straight to the top and we want to go to the school board, right? And all that ends up with a Green Beret or a parent in handcuffs, right? Is they accidentally swear at the school board member or something and get taken out of handcuff.
Exactly.
But start smaller. You don't have to start with, "I'm going to go to POTUS and solve all the problems," right? Like, talk to the people that are there. If you have kids in that high school, too many parents that I know are just drop-off parents, right? They want to drop off their kids in the morning, pick their kids up sometime in the early evening, or come back from work in the early evening, put their kids in front of TV for a few hours to be influenced by all the mainstream media and all this stuff. And I mean, wonder why they're doing stupid out in the world. Because their brains haven't fully developed until they're like 26 years old. And, we have to be present, and we have to find those communities that we can help. I know a retired 10th Youth Sergeant Major that was a Tillman Scholar and more, and he coaches football out in Colorado and he teaches. And man, I was like, "Mike, dude, you being a teacher, like I would hate to be in your class," because he is a prototypical SF Sergeant Major, but he's crushing it and he's making awesome young men on his programs, and his teams are winning. They love him and respect him. I know a 5th Youth Sergeant Major that went and was a teacher, and the school hated him, and he ended up leaving very quickly, even though he brought a lot to the table because he couldn't deal with the politics in the public schools and more. So just find those areas to where you want to help, and just put one foot in front of the other and go start helping. I tell SF guys all the time, if you have kids in high school and they want a free, it's called CPO certification, Certified Project Officer, I'll give you a free code to get your high schooler through that. It's online, self-paced. They don't have to do anything other than watch videos on their phone or iPad. So I'll give them a free seat for that, and they get a free CPO, which helps them for college applications, helps them for more. If your military spouse is unemployed, I'll give her a free certification to help them get into the job market and more. So, but don't be too prideful just to ask the question. Like, I can't tell you how awesome it is that you just said, "How do we help?" Because we tend to not want to ask the questions that we don't know the answers to, but just get out in the community, start stepping forward and being a positive voice. And it's amazing how much positivity spreads when you're in fact positive.
Well, isn't that kind of like a Green Beret thing? We're always kind of like at that root level. I mean, we're not interested in going like what you're talking about, going straight to the POTUS. I mean, not worrying about what the federal government's doing or what the state government's doing it. I mean, one of the things I always picked up and was taught in my time in SOF was, it's always grassroots. It's always just down there at the working level.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's where kind of we master is we understand that we're not worried about going to the school board. We're worried about like hitting the target.
Yeah. And quit making people peel back the onion on you. That's one of the biggest problems that we have as well is we'll go do those grassroots things and we'll go, hey, I want to help. And they'll go, all right, well, what do you bring? Oh, I'm in the Army. What do you do in the Army? Oh, I'm an engineer. What do you do for engineers? Oh, I'm at Campbell. What does that mean? Oh, I'm at this special forces group. We make them peel back all these levels of onions because we're too prideful or whatever to say, or fear of being prideful to say, oh, I'm a special forces engineer at this special forces group. And I want to help my local community. I want to volunteer and coach soccer. I want to volunteer and learn something new. And again, it's amazing if you just get out and communicate with people. When you solve a problem for them, hey, I want to help. Again, POD, right? Here's my offering and here's my differentiators and why I'm going to help your teams. I'm going to help your community. I'm going to help this organization. There are Boy and Girl Scout clubs all across the U.S. that are dying. There are all sorts of things that we can do. And everybody looks back at me and says, oh, man, I don't have the time for that. And I say, quit wearing your busyness like a badge of honor. Being busy isn't cool. I work less now than I ever have in my life, and I get more done because I'm good at what I do.
Now, as far as Frag Out, obviously you can go on Amazon, like you can get anything on Amazon. But besides Amazon, are there other ways to get your latest book, Frag Out?
Yeah, Amazon or on the DOL Coach website. So, and soon I'll have some conversation with you and Mike about Blackstone, how we get out there as well.
Fantastic. Yes, sir. Scott, fantastic. Guys, dolcoach.com. That is Scott Kinder's website. You also have, we mentioned 2 or 3 of his books. Probably want to get a copy of FM 18-1. That is a Green Beret's guide to goals and visions. Something that struck me, everything we've talked about, Scott, is really, if you could take the oxen and like condense it down to a bouillon cube, if you will. It's kind of like how to keep living the Green Beret life after you leave the military. That's like one strand of thought. So get off the couch. Hey, look, you were trained for a reason. You got all those skills. Use them if you give a crap. You should. There's plenty of things to do out there. You have a lot of those skill sets that our country needs right now, as it's probably in one sense a negative outlook is spiraling down to oblivion. But we can arrest that fall. And what our country needs is leadership, solid leadership. And as you said, is a grassroots, maybe not POTUS level. We need to drain the swamp, of course. But in our own communities, people need leadership. And you mentioned all those areas where we can step up to the plate and actually make a big difference. So that's awesome. Very encouraging you said that. And then not only that, but if, you're having some financial disparities, you got some issues, Scott's got a great book on that. And probably, I would I like the DOL Coach website. You got not only if you're for the books and blogs, but then if you're led into project management, and he's got everything there, how to get started. So you can follow his lead and, kind of branch out and find yourself. And so that's something we're always looking to do is, how to take all those skills we have, how to use them. And, I have to say this too. I love the scripture that you put on in your book too.
Thank you.
Yeah, especially Isaiah 6:8. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" And I said, "Here I am, send me." So I think it's a call for all of us. Everybody with a spine, a heart, everybody that cares about your family, about the glory of Christ, and also our country. And so I went there. And I'm glad that you shared that mindset, Scott. And this was time well spent. I hope it was for you too. I'm sure it is. And I hope that however the Lord uses you, it will be for His glory and for your good.
Same to you. Thanks so much for having me. I hope I didn't talk too much, but it was
fantastic.
Highly enjoyable.
Yes, sir. Well, God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, guys.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Pinelander Podcast. If you enjoy our unique content, please consider supporting our sponsors. Soft News provides special operations news from around the world. It's where Paul and I go to keep abreast of what's going on within the SOF community. Check them out at soft.news. American Partisan. It's the vanguard movement of Western civilization. Be sure to check them out at americanpartisan.org. And, of course, Blacksmith Publishing. We've been serving the warrior class since 2013. They have a great titles written for warriors, by warriors. If you're looking for excellent reference material or just want to enjoy a great novel, be sure to check out the bookstore. Or if you enjoy hanging out with warriors, come spend some time with us in the G Base over at the Pinelander podcast. All that's at blacksmithpublishing.com. Until our next meeting, stay mentally and tactically smart, physically and spiritually strong, and socially astute. To each other we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. May God continue to bless Pineland.